everyone, this is Danielle, the Queen Bee, coming at you, and today I thought I'd change it up and show you an earring design that I came up with at the request of one of my Facebook friends. It's just a simple, fun summer earring which has like an integral hook into it, and we need to use a wig jig to get the shapes, and I will of course show you all that. We'll make the second one together. So what you'll need is an anvil or a bench blocker, whatever you like to use for hammering. And the reason I'm hammering is because I'm using copper, and copper is soft, so, extra strength. There's the hammer I'm using, just a little ball peen hammer. And here's the jig. It's an acrylic plate with holes drilled in. It's a Wig Jig brand, but there are other ones. And I'm using a nail file, or part of one, right there, just to file edges off. And you don't need a wig jig if you don't have one. Just find one that is the shape you want. And there's my jump ring mandrel that I will be using later. And the regular tools that you see me use all the time. Flat nose nylon jaw pliers, flush cutters, round nose nylon jaw pliers, and chain nose pliers. And I will be using my usual copper 20 gauge and 26 gauge. And I've got my little tray here with a piece of candy jade bead on it. And I'm going to be needing 3 of these 4mm copper beads. The candy jade bead is about 8mm, and I'm just using some cheap Chinese glass bright colored beads. You can use whatever you like. I'm just using them because I happen to have them. So the first cut I'm gonna make here is I'm gonna use it later for the there's a second part of the earring that I need. So I'm just sort of looking here, calculating and figuring out, oh, that's going to be too short. So I'm going to cut a longer piece. Your length will, be dictated by how big you want your earring to be and how big you want your hook to be, if it's going to be included in the frame of the earring like mine. It's all very subjective and determined by what you want to do. So as you can see with my jig, I've got 2 round, jigs, I guess. One is about 3/4 of an inch and one is about 1/2 inch. And I'm just sort of determining here which direction my copper needs to go in, because I'm going to make this earring the mirror opposite of that one. So I just have to first figure out what the heck is going on and get it straightened out in my mind. So you're basically going to make a figure 8. So I'm going to save a bunch there at the beginning of the wrap. And I'm going to end up trimming quite a bit off at the end of it, because what you see there that's kind of poking out on the bigger circle at the top or bottom, depending how you want to think about it, that's going to be your ear hook. So I'm just leaving that alone for now. And the other part that's kind of bent out the other side, there's the copper there. You can see it around the circles. The other part that's even a longer length of wire is gonna get trimmed. So we just don't need that much. I think these earrings would be fabulous with squares or triangles. I think that would look great. I might try that next time. Alright, so I'm gonna make a curl. Sorry you can't see it. And I'm gonna trim the straight part of the curl off, and then I'll continue curling it. Oh, I'm sorry that I am so unenergetic today. I have a cold. It's May, for God's sake, and I am cold. I have a cold. It's awful. The sun is shining, the weather's great, and I have a cold. Who gets a cold in May? I don't know. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this shorter length of copper around the bigger circle that I've got, and it will fit around the lower circle on the earring. It'll give us a bit of room there because obviously there's a difference in size. About a 1/4 inch. So first what I'm gonna do is figure out kind of where I want it, and then I'm gonna trim off the excess because I'm gonna be making some loops that will catch onto the main frame of the earring, and it will that's how it'll be affixed. There we go. And I'm gonna use my round nose pliers and sort of bend, and then bend the other one. Just trim off that bit of straight wire that we can't bend into a circle. Okay, now I've got these sort of little wee hooks on this semicircular link, and I'm just going to tighten these ever so that I can get them onto the frame. And then we can carry on with the task at hand here. Oh yeah, of course, before we do that, we need to hammer. Hammer, hammer, hammer. And do be careful when hammering where it crisscrosses. Only, like that. Only hammer it, a couple of times, because I'm not sure why, but when you do hammer too much over wires that are crossed or twisted together or whatever, they break and they become very, very delicate. Perhaps somebody out there watching knows what the reason is. If it's a metallurgical reason, or if it's a physics thing, or if it's I don't know. I just know that it's true. So, do be careful. Okay, put the anvil away for now. And one of the hardest parts for me is getting the symmetry of earrings. So you'll see me spending a lot of time kind of noodling around being like, is that the same? Is that the same? Is that the same? I can get them pretty close. They're not perfect, but they're, they're close. And for somebody like me, that's good enough. Because I'm likely just going to keep these and wear them. There. So I'm just pinching those loops closed so that it's there, but not super tight around the main frame of the earring, just because you want to have the ability to move them, like slide them closer together or further apart, or whatever you need to have done. And now I'm gonna put out my beads into my triangle tray there. There we go. And this is the fun part. At least for me, it's the fun bit. Where we get to, I'm gonna cut, I don't know, probably about 2 feet of 26 gauge wire, and I'm gonna cut it, and then we get to add the beads and add the fun part. Yeah, even though I don't do much bead weaving anymore, I still really like beads. So I'm just starting to wrap around at the top there, where the junction is between the straight part and where it starts to curve. And I'm just gonna add 1 bead at a time for this part of the frame. It makes a nice kind of touch for the for that one kind of hoop part of the earring. Because the way these earrings are configured, they'll sit, oops, a bead flies away. They're gonna sit with the earring design flush against the side of your head. They're not gonna be turned to face forward. You could make them that way if you want. You would just need to turn the hooks to like 90 degrees. So that it will fit. But I tried that and I found it didn't look as nice, so that's why I'm doing it this way. Anyhow, because of that, that's why I wanted to do the little individual wrapping of, beads along the front so that there's some interest visually on the edge there. There we go. So I'm just picking up a bead and then wrapping around and sort of holding the bead on top of the wire. The frame. I shouldn't say these things so ambiguously. I apologize. My vocabulary is just like meh today. There we go. See how they're all sitting like on next to each other and on top of the wire. There we go. So that's how we do it. And I'm going to wrap just to hold these two things together. These two hoops. I'm not putting any beads on, I'm just wrapping at this point to hold it together at the beginning. And then we'll start adding. So now I'm going to start adding beads. So I'm basically adding them to fill the gap there at the bottom. So it's the same principle as before. You just take a bead or two or however many you need and just wrapping the wire around the back and coming up. Just making loops. And you can follow a pattern if you like. I know some people like to do that. These are just very simple kind of abacus style earrings, and I'm just using the beads as I pick them up. I don't really care about an order because they're all really bright colors. They all go together, so it doesn't matter. There we go. So I've added, I think I've got 3 on there, or one really long deformed one. So there you go. That's what I mean by adding more or less, depending on what your space dictates. You can be more precise about it if you are using a more precise bead, like a Delica or a Toho Treasure or a Czech bead. Those beads are a lot more precisely made, so especially the Japanese ones. So yeah, you'll have more precision if you want that. So I just strung on a copper bead, and it's gonna cover up, there's that loop that we made on the frame there at the beginning before I did anything. I just felt like a one final sort of bead there at the end would make sense. So I decided it would be one of the copper ones. And I'm going to go through it twice. So I'm just wrapping my wire up and through the frame. And then I'm going to go through the copper bead again. Like so. Here we go. And just give that a pull, making sure you're not kinking it. Alright. Now, I'm going to go ahead and wrap where the frame meets, like where the loops all are for holding the bigger loop on the bottom of the earring onto the main frame of the earring. I'm wrapping there so that it doesn't look so weird, and so that it's a lot more rigid and strong. I'm gonna move that out of the way. Right, because I need to hammer out a head pin. So just hammer down and slide, and that will give you the flattened out head pin. I love those, they're great. Easy and fast. In this case, I'm going to be I'll be putting the jade bead on there, and then I'll be rolling up the bottom, so it'll be hammered and rolled. That sounds like a type of music. I am so sorry, you guys. I'm so not with it. But I didn't want to neglect you guys, so I'm going to put the candy jade on, right, like I'm doing right there, and a copper bead. Just so that there's like a graduation in size. And I'm going to curl that bottom spoon-like shape of copper. There we go. And now I'm going to make a wrapped loop. You'll notice I cut kind of a generous amount of wire for this, and the reason I did is because it's really tough to wrap your wire in a small confined area like we will be doing here. So if it's a bit long, then that gives you something to hold on to with your fingers and with your tools. But of course you don't want it to be too long, because then that'll be just as hard as it being too short. So yeah, it takes a bit of practice to figure out what will work for you. So I'm just slipping it on, fiddling around with it, getting it to sit properly, and then I will wrap it. Okay, so I am wrapping my weaving wire around everything, and I'm also going to wrap it to make a big messy wrap at the top of the dangle that we just added with the copper bead and candy jade bead, because I really wanted there to be something whimsical in there. And then guess what? We'll be able to move on to the final step, the hook. Yay! So you can make this as big a wrap as you see fit. I will stop eventually when yeah, there it is. That's what I'm pointing at. The messy wrap right above that copper bead. That's what I'm working on. So there, I got it where I wanted it to be. And now we get to finish off. So I'm going to take my last copper bead for this project. I've used 3 per earring. Okay, so we slip that on, and then I'm going to put these beads away, because knowing me, they will get spilled everywhere, and I am so not in the mood for that today. There we go. Now, I've left a tail of weaving wire up here, just a short one, and I'm going to wrap it around this bead, and then a few wraps above the bead. This will keep it in place, and it won't want to flip up onto the hook and fall off, because that does happen sometimes. And it also kind of mimics those fake wire wraps that you see all the time on those manufactured hooks. Mine is real though. It's a real wire wrap, none of this fake stuff. Okay, so I am going to bend it just with my fingers, bend it towards me, because that's the way I like doing these things, and I'm wrapping it around the biggest section of that mandrel there. A Sharpie works well too, if you don't have a mandrel. And now I'm going to do my best to make these the same. So I know that the roundness of them is the same because I wrap them around the same part of the mandrel. But I need the rest of the hook to be the same, so I'm bending in the same spot, and then I'm gonna cut the tail in the same place, like that. And get this anvil out again in my hammer. Alright, just hammer the round bit. Be careful not to hammer anything you don't want hammered, because it will likely break, and that's a shame. Okay, now I'm going to take my nail file and just file the edge there, just so that any kind of pointy, potentially sharp and cutty kind of bits are filed down And it's best to file in one direction. Like that. One direction at a time. And that is an earring, my friends. Any tweaking you need to do to make it all straight, you can do with your hands gently. Just massage them into place. And that is your earring. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm sorry that I have a cold, but I really wanted to get this made for you. So, have fun making these. I will see you in the next video. Bye!